Hey everyone, Dan at Ochiko Bushcraft. Well, I'm out here, beautiful March morning, fresh snow on the ground again, and I'm gonna do an upside down fire. Now, I've built myself a little rock wind reflector right here. The wind is gently blowing that way, but just in case it switches, I've got a wind stop here, and also the rocks are gonna reflect some heat back on me. I got me a dead log here I'm gonna sit on, and I've gathered up quite a bit of firewood. What I want to do from start to finish is another upside down fire for you guys. Now, I've done some upside down fires in past videos. The thing is, the upside down fire is such an important skill, especially a survival skill, that I really feel I can't emphasize it enough. So I wanted to revisit that and do another one for you guys. So right now, it's been raining, it's been snowing, the ground is wet. It's wet and muddy. If I want to build a fire a more traditional way, starting with small stuff and then gradually adding bigger and gradually adding bigger, I'm going to have to baby it for a while. The moisture in the air, the moisture on the ground, everything is going to fight against that fire for a while until I get some heat produced and some bigger stuff burning. All of that moisture and humidity is going to fight against the fire, and it's also going to smoke a whole bunch. If you guys have built fires on wet soil in the wintertime, you know that until you get them going good and you get some bigger stuff in a bed of coals, they smoke like crazy. You got to constantly feed them. Well, with an upside down fire, you don't have to do all that. Your big stuff is on the bottom. You've got airflow coming up from underneath, oxygen fueling the fire, also preventing all that smoke and everything. The cold, wet ground can't suck the heat down into the ground because the fire is starting out up here. And by the time it gets down to the big stuff, you've already got coals all throughout. This fire, I've used it many, many times over the past several winters. Never disappointed. They throw out a tremendous amount of heat. They'll burn for hours and hours and hours without any attendance whatsoever. You could just, once you get it going, you can just let it go. You can, roll out your bedroll, take a nap. It's a great fire to use at night before you go to bed. Just use even some bigger stuff than what I am. But in a survival situation, it is also just a perfect fire because, number one, it's going to burn better, it's going to burn longer, it's going to burn hotter, and it's going to allow me to rest. If I've been, say, walking for several hours, or I'm just tired, or I'm stressed, it's going to allow me, once I get the fire going, to rest. I'm going to be able to get warm, I'm going to be able to get dry, I'm going to be able to boil some water or melt some snow and get water that way. Whatever I need to do, it's going to enable me to do other tasks, whatever it is. In my opinion, the absolute best fire lay that you can learn for a real survival situation. So upside down fire. Start with the biggest stuff and we're going to put it on the bottom. But before I do that, I've cleared out an area. And what I like to do is if I'm going to lay my first layer this way, is to make a couple little troughs underneath, so there'll actually be air troughs even underneath that bottom layer, feeding and fueling this fire. So we got some big old stuff here, and basically I'm doing it like a log cabin. I'm leaving an inch or two of space between, because the hot coals are going to fall down from the top and they ignite the middle and ignite the bottom, and pretty soon the whole thing will just be burning and generating heat. So setting some my bigger stuff on the bottom here, leaving a gap for air to come up through and coals to fall down between. Okay, and then next layer is stuff that's slightly smaller. And this one wants to roll. There we go. Some of this stuff's a little short, so I'll just put a couple of them back to back. Like so. And then again this way. And like a log cabin, I'm just going to keep going. And now I'm going to do another layer this way. And I'm gradually getting to the smaller stuff as I go. I'm working my way from biggest to smallest. Thing is, you want to be sure and gather up all your firewood beforehand, just like you would if you were going to even doing a traditional small to big. You'd hopefully gather up your firewood to start with so you didn't have to go on an emergency run to keep the fire going. Okay, I'm getting down to some smaller stuff now. And get a few more up here. So I'm going to do one more this way. So I'm down to my smallest stuff that I've got here before I put my top layer on. Actually, so I've still got some small stuff here. I'll do one more layer across. Okay, now I'm going to take one here, set it kind of up at the back. Actually, I need another one a little bit thicker, or set that on top of another one. So I'm making myself a little rise in the back here. There we go. So I've got all my small stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a fire going here, and I'm going to set my small stuff up at an angle so that plenty of air gets underneath it. And got myself a little fire plug. I don't want to lose it. Just set it right in here, should work. There we go. So remember, I did a review on these little fire plugs. Break that in half. I'm just going to use half of it. Fluff up the end. Flour it out. And anytime you're out in the woods, I teach this in my classes. You should have a bottle of windproof, waterproof matches with you in a bright colored container. So if I drop this on the ground, I'm going to be able to quickly retrieve it because it's bright orange. And I'm not likely to leave it behind. When I stop, I leave this area, I turn around, see that bright orange color, and I don't leave it behind. So light that fire plug, and then we'll get the small stuff up on top. See if we can't get this upside down fire going. Got my small stuff, I'm going to spread it out a little bit so there's some air gaps in it. And I'm going to put it right up here over my flame. And it might take a minute or so. Well, I can honestly say that's the first time that's happened. My little fire plug went out. So that's interesting to know. I've never had one just stop burning like that before. I'll flour that up again. Something to pay attention to, because like I said, I've never had that happen, and if that happens again, I may end up switching back to just good old cotton balls and Vaseline, because I've never had one of those go out. That's a first time for me. Well, I'll go ahead and use that other half in here too then, and use them both. Yeah, these are handy to carry in a kit, but same time, I don't want something that's going to just go out. And there's plenty of airflow coming up through there, so that shouldn't have happened. All right, try this again. And my small stuff here. Boy, that's not doing very good. I don't really understand that. I haven't had any trouble with these before, but I'm actually learning something new, because if they are going to cause trouble, I can tell you right now, I'm going to be making up a batch of cotton balls with Vaseline to carry on the side, because I'm not liking that. I'm not really liking that at all. So, see if we can get that flame drawn up through there a little bit. There we go. More like it. Now we're getting it fired. Just keep on feeding the top here until we get the top going really good. The sun's finally deciding to come out. And I see my wind has switched directions. So when I sat down here just a few minutes ago, all my wind was blowing straight up the canyon, and now it's starting to come down this way. But that's okay, because I have a nice mobile seat here, and I'll just move it around and sit on this side. Got a lot of old man's beard and mosses and lichens on some of these dead limbs that I broke off trees. They're damp, but in a flame, they catch fire pretty quickly. Okay, so I've got my upside down fire started. Now what I want to do for you guys, so you can see how this progresses, is I want to actually pause the video and just let this burn for 5 or 10 minutes, and then come back and pause again, let it burn another 5 or 10, so you can just see some of the progression of how the coals begin to fall down through, and the layer by layer this ignites. And I'll be sitting right here on this log. So I'll move it around back out of the smoke and catching the heat and getting warmed up. Okay, it was 9:50 when I turned the camera off. If you guys can see that, it's 9:54 and 30 seconds. So it's been 4.5 minutes, and 4.5 minutes, and I've just been sitting back here. I got some boughs spread out on this log to give me a little insulation. And all I've been doing is just kicking back and enjoying the heat and enjoying the fire. This thing throws out a lot of heat. I mean, this whole area around me right now is just as warm as can be. I actually feel I'm probably going to have to start sliding back away from it here shortly. But that's how the upside down fire works. You can see that all that small stuff that I put on top has burned. My coals and flames and stuff have now gone down into about 3 layers down. And some hot coals, occasionally I can see hot coals are falling down into the next layers. And all that airflow is coming up from the bottom. See how high them flames are going? All that airflow is coming up underneath. Rather than having all my small stuff down here on the wet, damp ground and it putting up a bunch of smoke and fighting for oxygen, the oxygen is feeding up into the fire. The fire's getting all the air it needs, and the coals are falling down and catching layer after layer. And it's a clean fire. It's not throwing out a whole bunch of smoke like it would if I had started it down here. And it's just throwing out an incredible amount of heat. So 9:56. Let's take another pause and come back in about 4 or 5 minutes and give you guys one final view. As you can see, it's gradually working its way down. Okay, 10 o'clock. So another, 4.5 minutes or so have gone by. And that's it. I'm just sitting back here kicking back. In fact, I'll tell you what, if it was evening, I'd have my bedroll laid right up against that log. That log scooted back a little bit more, and I'd be settling in front of this. This fire is putting out just tremendous amount of heat. But as you can see, it's continued to burn down the layers. It's now down here in the middle layer, and there's some coals that have fallen down to the bottom layer that are actually glowing and starting to burn on the big stuff. And like I said, it's going to burn hours. I don't have to do anything to it for the next several hours. And if I wanted it to burn longer, I would have just used even bigger stuff on the bottom layers, and I can control how many hours I want this to burn by the size. Another thing I can do, and actually I'm going to do here shortly, is once my coals get down farther, so say another hour, 11 o'clock, and I've got a big whole bunch of hot glowing coals down here, I'm going to take a stick and I'm going to make a little trough off to the side, and I'm going to pull my coals out into that trough. There's a creek right here behind me. I'm going to cut myself a forked willow branch, and I brought some kielbasa along, and I'm going to cook the kielbasa off to the side in that trough of coals. So I'll have a trough of hot cooking coals off to the side, plus my heating fire. I actually had to scoot my log back a little bit because it's so hot. That is just throwing out incredible amounts of heat, and it's well below freezing out here. And I tell you what, I could strip down to my shorts and t-shirt right now and just be as warm as could be. This thing has thrown out a tremendous amount of heat. But upside down fire. Listen, for you guys who are serious about survival training, highly recommend you learn and master the upside down fire. Thanks guys for tuning in to Ochako Bushcraft. Take care.